But today, I realise whenever I preach a very serious subject, so I thought I'll do it a bit lighter, although I can't help being serious when I do a lighter topic. So today I'm going to be talking about walking. In that mind, let's like chalice and ask ourselves that we may always walk in the light. Walking is both a reality and a metaphor. This chalice symbolise the light in which we would choose to walk all the days of our life. I'm going to set us on our way with a meditation. It's a kind of visualization meditation. So I'm going to invite you to get yourself in a kind of meditative pose. That takes a little bit of time, this meditation, but hopefully, as I said, the theme is walking, so I'm going to take you on a walk. So if we just sit ourselves down, get comfortable, and I just invite you to become conscious and aware of your breath. Just be aware of the breath entering and leaving your body. Don't do anything, just be conscious of that breath. And as you listen to my voice and you concentrate on your breath, become aware of feeling relaxed. The sound of my voice, the ticking of the clock, the consciousness of breath leads us all to a state of relaxation. And so just continue to breathe, to feel relaxed. And we're going to, it's easier to close your eyes at this point. It might be worth doing that, otherwise leave them open. And I want you to imagine yourself stood at the top of a large staircase in a big house. And in a few moments, I'm going to invite you to walk down those stairs. You're going to walk down those stairs, and as you walk down, you're going to feel more relaxed as you go down the stairs. So bring yourself to the top of the stairs, and I'm going to count from 10 to 1. With every number, you'll go down a step. And with every step down, you'll feel a little bit more relaxed. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so you're in a big room in a large house. I'm going to invite you to walk across that room to a main door. As you get to the door, put your hand on the door handle and turn. Open the door and step outside. You find yourself in a garden. It's a large garden, and in the distance there's a wood. And the weather is just as you like it, neither too hot nor too cold. And so you step into that garden. You notice it's morning time and there's a dew on the floor, on the ground. Just be conscious of walking on the grass, looking around. There is a bank of flowers, and busy insects, bees and butterflies are buzzing around the flowers. There's a tree in the garden. Just have a look around, look at the flowers, wander to the tree. And because you want to experience this, I'm going to invite you now to take off your shoes, and if you're wearing them, your socks. And now find yourself walking on the grass, which is moist from the overnight dew. Feel the moisture on the soles of your feet. Feel the moisture working up between your toes. Just enjoy the experience of the damp earth, the weight of your body on your feet, and the experience of walking in nature. And notice now, I said there was a wood, there's a path that leads into that wood. And so we're going to take a walk into the wood. So we walk across the garden in our bare feet, and we come to the edge of the wood. As we enter, the trees are quite sparse. There's plenty of light and lots of plants growing underneath the trees. But the wood gets a little bit thicker, and now we simply have dappled light. Less growth underneath the trees because there's less light. And we step a little further, and now there's simply the odd ray of light coming through. And the path leads us on. It leads us on to the point where it's quite safe and you feel quite comfortable, but it's quite dark. You can see your way, you can see the path, and you follow the path. Now, there's very little undergrowth because of the dark, and the moistness of your feet begins to pick up a little bit of the earth. It's a lovely feeling, maybe quite peaty. And you continue to walk. And you walk. And you continue to walk until in the distance you see a little strip of light. And as you walk towards it, that little light gets a little bigger until you notice that it is a clearing in the woods. Eventually you reach that clearing. This time there are lots of plants and flowers, but wild ones, not like the cultivated ones in the garden you saw before. And in the clearing there's a seat. And having taken this walk, you sit on the seat and you think to yourself, what do I want to do for myself in my life in the week ahead? Allow yourself just to, don't overthink this. What do you want to do that will be good for yourself and for the world in the week ahead? Just allow yourself to think. Take that as a message. Think it through. And now stand up again and begin to walk back into the path that you came through, walking and thinking about what you're going to do in the week ahead. It may not be a big thing, maybe very small. Just think it through as you walk. And you walk in the darkness of the wood until you see another strip of light, which you realize is the way you came in. And you keep walking. You walk until suddenly there's a little bit more undergrowth. There are little strips of light coming through the wood. And you walk further until you're back in the dappled light of the wood. And you walk further until you are at the edge where the trees are sparse and there's lots of undergrowth. And you walk out of the wood, and the path leads you back to the garden, where you can see your shoes, and if you're wearing them, your socks. The dew has passed, the ground is dry. So you sit down and you quickly brush any earth off your feet. Put your shoes and socks back on again. Stand up. Turn back towards the door. Walk towards it. Put your hand on the door handle and turn. Open the door and step inside. Allow a few moments to become accustomed to the darkness until you can see perfectly clearly, and walk across the room to the bottom of the stairs. And you're going to now walk back up those stairs, back to the service in the URC in Jesmond. I'm going to count from 1 to 10. With every number, you'll take a step up. With every step, you'll be more ready to come back to the service. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just allow yourself a few moments to be accustomed to being back. It's amazing how many meditations you're to go on will involve going on a walk. And walking is actually fundamentally part of what it is to be a human being. So I'm going to read to you something from an Australian museum, actually, about development of walking in human beings. Our bipedal body structure is unique amongst living apes. In fact, our ancestors started on the path to becoming human when they began walking on 2 legs. About 7 million years ago, our early ancestors climbed trees and walked on 4 legs when on the ground. By 5 million years ago, our ancestors had developed the ability to walk on 2 legs. But their gait was quite different from our own, and their skeletons retained some features that helped them climb trees. By 1.8 million years ago, our ancestors had developed long legs and an efficient striding gait that made it easier to travel longer distances. Our ancestors had also developed the ability to run. This new stride became possible when changes to the shoulder, the efforts we had, and I was not, nobody told me this was going to happen. The difficulty we had about getting this thing to stand. Have a look at the bottom. Just to make a pole of this thickness, that thickness, just to get that to stand, look at the amount of space at the bottom, and yet we still need a wedge and we need something inside it. If you look at children's toys, say from Playmobil, where you have to get the toy, the doll, to stand, their feet have to be disproportionately large because it's actually very hard to get something of this shape and to actually get it to stand because the balance is really hard. We don't realise how incredible it is that we do it. I'm 6 foot, I've actually got small feet, they're about 8.5 my feet, but I'm beaten by John Wayne. If you ever watch a John Wayne film, he's a bit embarrassed because he had very small feet. So they hardly ever show his feet. And if you look at Hollywood, he did have an impression. John Wayne was 6'4" and his feet were probably between 5 and 6. But he still managed to walk. I mean, there was a bit of that sort of gait, probably how we had to overcome it. It is an incredible feat of engineering that we manage to stand without having to think too much about it, although our brains are doing a lot of work. And you know there's a balance thing going on in the ears, because if you know of anyone who gets Meniere's disease or various forms of vertigo, that balance disrupted and it's very hard to stay standing. Where his feet pass. And if you think about the Hebrew creation myth, which is the story of the Garden of Eden, God actually walks in the garden. So even God walks in that story. And walking it's everywhere. I hadn't even thought about it. I had this idea of talking about walking, and I know because I like going on a walk and because I know it's good for us. But then I was just thinking about songs that involve walking, and you'll be aware of them from way back when you were tiptoeing through the tulips to Patsy Cline walking after midnight.
Then there's the proclaimer singing, I'm going to be, because I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more. Johnny Cash walked the line. When I was a kid, I used to walk with my dad and we always used to sing the Happy Wanderer. I love to go wandering. Valderie, Valdera, Valdera.
Nobody can remember the rest of the words.
With an accent on my back, yeah. Then, of course, Nancy Sinatra boots were made for walking. Then we could walk like a man or even walk like an Egyptian. Dire Straits from round here took us on the walk of life. Aerosmith taught us to walk this way. Christmas, we like to walk in a winter wonderland, and we can walk on air, as in the Snowman, or with Katrina of the Waves, walking sunshine. So this is a reading from Mary Ann and Frederick Broussard, Spirituality in Practice. Walking is a spiritual practice that yields so many dividends. Replenishment of the soul, connection with the natural world, problem solving, self-esteem, health and healing, and heightened attention. Movement seems to encourage dialogue and conviviality, leading to a richer conversations with soulmates, friends, and even strangers. Artists report that walking activates the imagination and opens up the creative process. It is deeply restorative. Throughout time, walking has played an enormous role in the devotional life of people from all the world's religions. Prayers and mantra practice while walking, pilgrimage to sacred sites, walking the labyrinth, walking meditation, and informal spiritual practices that make the most of strolling, sauntering, or cavorting. And then, of course, there are the routines of walking the dog, taking a break, walking around the block, or communing with God at the end of the day. These rituals of everyday spirituality lift the spirits and provide peace and contentment in our stressful times. Our life can be described as a journey that begins when we are born and has the same destination for all of us. And yet at the same time, we simply are. And yet by walking, we are restored. Let us give thanks for those of us who can walk for recreation. And think of those fleeing persecution by walking and being hungry. Those who walk through Africa and Europe to try and find somewhere where they can escape. Those who walk to get away out of Kharkiv in the Ukraine, walking across from one part of Gaza to another to escape the bombs. Those who in walking use more energy than they take in eating. Let us give thanks for our beautiful bodies, so wonderfully made, that allow us to walk in such a way to be creative with our hands that we don't need to use to walk. And let us turn our minds to He who walked in the garden at the beginning of time. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Some people like to communicate by sitting down and looking at each other. So you go for a a coffee maybe with a friend, and you sit opposite each other and you chat. But I actually think that lots of us, and I think often men more than women, but that's in my experience, we communicate better not by looking at each other, but by looking in the same direction. You think about that when we watch sport together, we sit next to each other, we look in the same direction, or we watch TV or film together, or we lean against the bar in a pub with our friend and talk about whatever's going on. But most commonly, we talk that way when we walk. I am one of these people who find the idea of just sitting and having a deep, meaningful conversation with someone kind of scary, but I don't mind going for a walk with them. And I know I had a very significant bereavement once, and I was really struggling. I didn't really want to talk to anyone. And a friend of mine said, "Tell you what, why don't we go for a walk?" And we went hiking together. And that was so much easier because as I'm walking with this friend, who's called Chris, we could talk about what we were seeing, we could talk about the effort of the walk, and then we would drift into the difficulty I was having and drift out of it again. And that was so meaningful to me that I've done it myself now with any friend of mine who's I thought could do with solace. Rather than saying, "I'm going to come and talk to you about it," I've said, why don't we go to the Dales? Why don't we go to Northumberland for a walk? And the first thing that's happened is they always say yes, rather than "do you want to talk about it?" And the second thing is, you given the cues as you're walking, actually to walk in silence is a heck of a lot easier than to sit down and look at somebody in silence, because you're doing something when you walk. And walking, I think, works that way because it is so fundamentally part of what it is to be a human. Homo sapiens sapiens, and there's a lot of debate about when Homo sapiens sapiens, that's us, developed. The kind of consensus is about 300,000 years ago. So people who were genetically like you and me were wandering the earth 300,000 years ago. And those people first started riding animals, horses, we think at first, about 5,000 years ago. So for the vast majority of our evolution, the only way we could get about was on Shakti's pony. Yeah, on our own 2 feet. That's how human beings conquered the world, got everywhere, not on horses, on their feet. In fact, people thought that was something unique about Homo sapiens sapiens, but we know now that much earlier, the apes, they came down off the trees, and at first they walked probably similarly to a chimpanzee, but that gradually, and you can see the famous picture, can't you, of the ape, and the next picture is somewhere until you get to somebody standing there. But they thought at first the brain got big and then the walking started. Now we know that our early ancestors, the ones who first walked, had a tiny brain, much smaller than a sheep's. So somehow that walking was crucial. And I don't know, I'm no scientist, but it seems to me that one of the things you learn is once you start walking that way, you need fewer muscles to get yourself about, okay? So if you're walking on all feet, you're using all your body to walk, to move. Once you get up there, suddenly you can start doing other things with this, because you can use these things while you're walking because you're not needing them to move. Hence the ability to throw a spear, to throw a stone, and then to be creative because we've got these things around. And the other thing is, because you don't use all your body, it's not as tiring. So although people, early humans, couldn't run as fast as their prey, they could go on for longer. So say you've decided you're going to kill that deer. The deer will run away from you, but actually, because it's using most of its body energy, it can only go for so long. Human being just plods along, like doing the Great North Run, you know, just plods along, chases the animal, and eventually it's too tired. And you've got there, you've got your spear, you've got your hands. You seem to be able to have, no other animal can, even a horse can't run as far as a human being. And it may well be that the development of our brain is all developed from standing, and we don't know why the first hominids stood, from standing to using our hands to then the brain growing to think, well, what can I, now I've got these hands, what can I do with them? But now we live in a world where that ability to walk, the ability is still there, but the necessity has left us, hasn't it? Seems to me two things have happened. So if we go back in evolutionary history, the first 295,000 years of human beings, the first thing we know is that what we've got is a problem with our eating and with our mobility. So we assume that early human and hunter-gatherers ate whatever they could, you know, nuts and berries, but every now and again would get a feast of meat or of honey, sugar. And that was so valuable because it would give you the energy that you needed that they began to crave it. So although you didn't get much of it, when you did, you made sure you got lots of it. That urgency to get lots of fat and sugar inside of us is still there. Problem is we don't need it and it's not doing us any good. And I'm now on a diet because of the problem. And the other thing is the ability to walk has gone. Now we can get anywhere we want by sitting down. I got here today sitting down. Well, that was strictly true. The first 10 yards I walked and the last 20 yards I walked. But in between, I sat down. And again, if you're living in a world where you're, as I say, running for miles and miles, chasing that deer, you really learn to value resting because you don't get much chance. And so again, instinctively, we love resting and we've become lazy. And yet the evidence is that walking, as alluded to in the second reading there, is good for our spiritual health. It's also good for our physical health. It's good for our heart. It's good for our mental health. It's good for our fitness. It's good for our waistlines. It's good for our communication. Walking is the most basic human thing of all, and yet the most spiritual. Now, I'm biased on this because of my surname, which, if you don't know, is Walker, by the way. But for me, there's nothing like a walk. I've recently, by the wonders of the internet, got back in touch with 3 old friends. My oldest friend, who grew up in the street where I lived, I've always been in contact with him a bit. My best school friend and my best university friend. And in all 3 cases, what I've done is arrange to go for a weekend's walk with them. And what an experience. Walking with somebody, you don't have that awkwardness. And then at the end of the day, you're knackered. So when you eat together, you can talk about the walk if there's nothing else to talk about. I find it easier if one of my kids has got a problem, say, let's go for a walk. Almost everything I can think I could do is improved by walking. It enables conversations to happen. And of course, when we get old, we lose that ability. But one of the most wonderful things you see is people walking with someone in a wheelchair. We can walk people, so the experience of moving at the speed of walking can still be experienced by people. And people love to be walked in a wheelchair rather than sitting in a car. And so in all the major world religions, walking is not something people do. It's fundamental to what we do. I was in northern Spain on holiday last year, seeing people walking the Camino, you know, the path that goes from France to Santiago de Compostela. Thousands of people take that path every year. There are lots of other pilgrimage walks you can do. You can do the St Cuthbert's Way. I probably walk somewhere around here and end up in Lindisfarne. I don't know if you've ever walked the pilgrimage, the beach over to Lindisfarne. It's a great thing to do. And it's fantastic for your feet because you do it in bare feet. And when you get to the other side, it's like you've had a fantastic pumice massage on your feet. Wonderful. The fundamental part, you know, in Islam, there are 5 things you have, 5 pillars, and one of them is to go on the Hajj. And what do you do when you get there? You walk around the Kaaba. And more Muslims, you could walk from Mecca to Medina. There are thousands of Hindu pilgrimage sites and Buddhist ones, all of which you're expected at least at the end to walk. Somehow the idea has developed in all religions that we get closer to the divine by walking. Interesting, isn't it? Walking is the most fundamental human thing, and yet by doing it, we get close to the divine. Interesting. And I know of no better feeling than lying down in bed at night after I've had a very, very long walk. My legs are aching, they feel heavy, and I can lay down and just enjoy that falling to sleep. And also we know that it aids memory. If you've ever had a walk, lay down and just remember the walk you've done, and you will remember what happened on that day because you get so much sensory stuff coming your way that you can remember the day by remembering the walk. And we value those sites that are harder to get to. You know, I often feel so sorry for people in the Lake District who simply drive a car, sit and look up. Much better to walk up. And then finally, I had the wonderful experience the other day that my little grandson, his name is Barney, but he is only representative of this of all of us because we've all been there. We may not remember it, and we'll have witnessed other people. He is now 8 months old, and he's desperate to walk. But of course, he has no balance. But the thing that makes him happiest is to put your hand there. He holds your hand, and there's this kind of, and you know he's trying. He hasn't got it, but he's going to develop it. I've got a son, you've met him, Sam, he's got Down syndrome. He still learned to walk. In fact, a friend of mine once said, you spend the first 2 years of a child's life teaching them to walk and talk, and the rest of their childhood telling them to shut up and sit down. But walking, I just want to, and it was lovely because it happened, we had that, but there was the other moment when Louise said to Brian, when Brian walked in, lovely day for a walk. Yeah, it's so part of what we've got. All the hymns have mentioned walking without any effort. And I thought, oh, can I find any hymns with walking in? And they're all there. It is a metaphor for life. We walk from birth to death. That's nice, though. So, let's sing. And I don't think we had a choice about the last hymn. Anybody guess? So the walk that was this service is ended. The walk of life continues. Just walk out with confidence and face whatever life has to throw at us. Amen.